Indeed, a very good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra on this 12th day of October 2017. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. Now, over the next few hours, we will be discussing the interesting political times we live in, where you blink briefly and everything changes right before your eyes. Now, the latest update from the political front is that NASA leader Raila Odinga departed for the United Kingdom yesterday, where he is expected to deliver a one-hour lecture on Friday at the Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs in the United Kingdom, on Kenya's next test, democracy, elections, and the rule of law. This, as the IEBC insisted last night, that Raila Odinga will be on the ballot paper come 26th October. The Supreme Court may once again be needed to give interpretation on this. Of course, we'll be talking a bit about that with my guest here in studio. Meanwhile, yesterday's NASA anti-IEBC demo, specifically in Kisumu County, ended on a sour note, as 23 people were admitted to the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital after protesters clashed with the police. We hope to give you an update on their current situation and, of course, the reaction from the authorities in the course of this program. We will also be discussing the delicate balancing act that IEBC must navigate, as they now have to contend not just with 2 presidential candidates, but possibly all 8. The Commission is currently smarting from its decision to bar the other presidential candidates from the fresh poll, a move which was overturned yesterday by Justice John Mativo. And finally, President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday stated that he will assent to election laws bill. Members of the National Assembly passed amendments to the laws yesterday, setting the stage for debate at the Senate level before the bill arrives on the President's desk before the weekend. Those are some of the topics we will be talking about in the course of this broadcast. Many thanks indeed for joining us. For you watching at home, we value your feedback on this program today. Talk to us on 22422 and on social media as well. The hashtag is Citizen Extra. Our accounts are at Citizen TV Kenya. The question we're asking you today: do you think Kenya's election law is too complicated? Have we made so many laws to accommodate the views of our different political players and different interests that these laws are now working against each other? At least that's what it looks like from a layman's perspective. Is the law very clear, as the joke now goes? Tell us, 22422, and talk to us on our platforms. And we'll be discussing that as well with my guests here in studio. We're also live from different parts of the country. We're live from Nyeri County, Martin Munene on standby, and Mombasa County as well. Asha Bekidusa is also on standby as well. Let's start with Martin. And Martin, we want you to ask Nyeri residents what I've just asked, of course, Kenyans a couple of minutes ago. Is Kenya's election law too complicated? Have we made so many changes to our law over the last 7 years or so that the law now seems to be working against each other? Is the law clear, as many are saying? What is the view of Nyeri residents? Martin, over to you.
All right. A very good morning to you, Wahiga Mwaura, from Nyeri County. I am standing along Kimathi Street in Nyeri County, and like you said, we're trying to understand if the residents of this country feel that, or this county rather, feel if they understand what is going on with the whole changes in the election laws. 1 minute NASA says that its candidate has withdrawn. IEBC comes and says no, he's still in the race. And now we're trying to understand, do the people of Nyeri understand what is going on? And with me are some residents, just to give us a perspective on the same. Kindly, if you can join me here and kindly look at the camera, help us, tell us who you are, and then help us understand. Tell us, do you understand what is going on with the IEBC or with the whole election process, or do you feel that the whole election process is too complicated for the ordinary Kenyan mwananchi? I'll hold it for you.
Asante sana bwana Munene. Kitu ya kwanza, mimi huwa ni mfanyi biashara wa Nyeri County. Majina yangu ni Samuel Gedaiga, CEO Sampat Properties Limited. Kitu ya kwanza na tunashukuru IEBC nao ni ya kwamba wamekubali tupige kura 26 of October, sababu sisi kama mwananchi wa kawaida hatuwezi elewa vizuri ile kitu inaendelea, lakini sababu wamekubali tupige kura, ningeomba watu wa Nyeri wajitokeze tupige kura, ndio tupate present na ndio hii nchi iweze kuendelea, na ndio sisi kama wanabiashara ile maisha ya kawaida irudi, na ndio ndio ile maisha ya kawaida ikirudi, tunapata pesa kama kawaida kama vile tulikuwa bereni.
Sawa. Labda tusikie mtu mwingine akisema maoni yake, labda utueleze unaitwa nani. Just I'll hold the mic for you. Tell us who you are, and do you feel that the whole election process is too complicated for you, or do you understand what is going on? And kindly look at the camera.
My name is Jeremiah Wachira Ishaura. I'm a businessman in Nyeri. We are totally confused with this mess. Today there are elections, tomorrow there are no elections. All what we know is one. In 2013 we elected a president, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. In 2017 August we elected him. Now we are asking Chebukati and the group, Bwana Uhuru, take charge, lead this country, stop these demonstrations. Those people have rights, we also have rights. Take them to Uhuru Park, guard our businesses, guard Kenya. That is the mandate we gave you as the Commander-in-Chief. Take it. Thank you.
Alright, maybe the last comment here, kindly tell us unaitwa nani, utueleze unaitwa nani, na maoni yako, unahisi kwamba hii uchaguzi unaelewa vile kunaendelea ama labda is it too complicated for you?
Mimi naitwa Alex Mwangi, niko business kutoka hapa Nyeri. Kenya ningesema sisi enyewe there is confusion. Yani wanatu confuse kwa sababu Raila mara anasema kuna uchaguzi, kesho anasema kuna maandamano. But Kenya tunaweza sema sisi tunajua tulirucha kura zetu na tukaweza kuchagua Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Na alafu hata kama majaji ndio wako na hiyo wakati wa kutoa, hata Maraga akiangalia yenye alitoa saa hii, hata wewe unajiuliza ya kwamba kama ungesema ukweli ile kula ilegelewe mahali iliharibikia, hakungekuwa na ita switch ya vita maandamano. But watu wawili tu, makaratasi mawili, hiyo ndio imetuma Kenya kuwe na maandamano. Saa hii hata watu wako na kesi kama wameiba buzi ama vitu zingine. Hawezi kuangalia Kenya mtu wa kuku ama buzi, kesi inamaliziwa na siku moja. But wakati wa leo tunataka kusema Wakenya wajitokeze katika mji wa Nyeri, Nairobi County, kila mahali turuche kura kwa Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta na tuchague president ako na haki kwa ajili ya kura. Asante.
Okay, maybe if a final gentleman who's walking, kindly just look at the camera, be very brief because of time.
Mimi naitwa Alfred Marini Jigwa. Mimi nitaweza kuuliza hii serikarini hii mtu wa kitendawili kama alikuwa anataka
my question is the whole nini process complicated? I'm not asking about one person. I want to know the process.
Kitu baya ni kusubua serikali bila tu biashara yetu inaenda chini na hakuna kitu kinaendelea. Hata kulingana vile kozi iliamua ikaamua tukarudi uchaguzini, hii mtu mmoja akasema gazijui fulani. Ile kitu nitaweza kuomba tuna amani na tuheshimu koti. Ile kitu mzuri tuweke kwa uchaguzi na tuchague president wetu Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay. Alright. So that you don't attack somebody. That is how things are in Nyeri. People feeling that they do not understand exactly what is going on. But many saying, like they've been saying before, that their businesses are suffering and their interest is they be able to vote or cast their votes on 26th so that businesses can go back to normal and their lives can actually go back to the way they were before this whole repeat election was called for. Back to you in studio, Wahiga Mwaura from Nyeri County. I am Martin Monene.
Thank you so much, Martin Manene, for those updates. Nyeri residents very clear on their political views, but not quite clear about the political twists and turns that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Let's see if the views of Mombasa residents is the same or different. Asha Bikidusa now on standby. Asha, the question we're asking Kenyans today is, do they feel that that Kenya's election laws are too complicated or are complicated? What is their take on that? There's a joke right now that the law is very clear, yet we have to keep running to different courts to get interpretation on that law as well. What is the take of Mombasa residents on Kenya's election law?
Well, a very good morning to you, Wahiga. I'm coming to you live from Kisauni, Mlaleo, in Mombasa County. And I'll be posing that question to some residents of Mombasa who will tell us what do they think of the law. Are they too complicated? Or let's say like we are too legalized, and as long as they're saying that the law is clear. Naam, tuambie majina yako na hisia zako kuhusiana na je, unadhani kwamba unaelewa hizi sheria za uchaguzi zilizopo?
Sheria.
Angalia kamera.
Sheria.
Nakushikia. Anza kwa majina yako.
Mimi naitwa Rogers. Naitwa Rogers, na kilichoko ni kwamba sheria hata kama wananchi mnatunyima kuzielewa vile zilivyo, lakini ukweli ni kwamba aliyeshitaki EIBC ni Raila. Inakuwaje Kinakuru Ukoti ndio wanapewa laini ya mbele waingie kwa uchaguzi? Hilo ni swali tu peke yake ndilo nilonalo mimi.
Naam, asante sana. Tutakuwa tunaweza kujiunga na mkazi mwingine. Naam, tuambie majina yako na hisia zako. Je, unaelewa hizi sheria za Kenya za uchaguzi?
Mimi majina yangu naitwa Charo. Na mimi sheria za uchaguzi nasema tulichagua jamaa wa uchaguzi ambaye ni Chefukadi. Na Chefukadi sasa yeye kuna watu wameingilia katikati yake wanavuruga. Na yeye mimi nataka chukue majukumu atutengenezee nchi. Manake yeye ndiye tunamwangalia pale juu. Na makosa yote ambayo yatatokea Kenya tutamlaumu yeye. Kwa hivyo tunaomba yeye achukue majukumu atengeneze nchi. Manake tumempa majukumu. Tunataka uchaguzi tarehe 26. Lakini uchaguzi ulio bora, si bora uchaguzi.
Naam, asante sana. Itakuwa tunaweza kujiunga na mkazi mwingine. Naam, tueleze majina yako. Na je, unahisi vipi kuhusiana na hizi sheria za uchaguzi za Kenya?
Kwa majina yangu naitwa Glide Khamati Mtanda. Kweli kulingana na sheria tuliopewa kutoka mwanzo tulitengeneza sheria na sheria hii ikawa imetufaa. Lakini mahali imefika sheria hii tumeanza kuivunja na kutumia katika njia sio nzuri. Ili hali ya kwamba kama saa hii Kenya inavyozidi kuwa katika harakati ya utatanishi ni kwamba Kenya mahali imekuwa mwananchi wa kawaida amekuwa sasa amezidi kuumia zaidi. Na ili hali ya kwamba sheria tuliweka ndio wameanza kujaribu kuitumia katika njia ya stahili, ndio tunaomba sheria ile tulikuwa nayo kwa saa hii tuweze kutumia hiyo. Na siku ikifika kwamba Kenya imetulia ndio iweze za kubadilisha sheria tujue ni kitengele gani tunatoa na kitengele gani tunaongeza. Na hii kwa saa hii watu waachie nafasi hiyo, ili hali ya kwamba kama Raila amejiondoa inafaa watafute sababu gani amejiondoa ili turudi katika debe kwa njia kwamba kila mmoja aridhike. Na mwananchi wa chini ndiye anazidi kuumia kwa ajili ya kwamba hakuna yeyote yule anayekuwa pale juu. Katika hizo sheria anazotumia anafinya mwananchi wa kawaida.
Asante sana. Itakuwa tunaweza kujiunga na mkazi mwingine. Na mtueleze majina yako na hisia zako kuhusiana na sheria za uchaguzi.
Jina langu naitwa Bruce. Hii sheria ya uchaguzi hawa watu tunataka tuwape kazi sisi wanatuhujumu. Kwa sababu hatujawahi kuona kwenye uwanja mtu akacheza huko akashika kipenga. Hiyo hatujawahi kuyaona, lakini inamaanisha wale ambao tunataka tuwape kazi wanataka wengi uwanjani wacheze mipira ni washike kipenga wao. Hata kama sisi wananchi wanatatiza pale mbele.
Je, unaelewa wewe sheria za uchaguzi?
Tunaelewa vizuri sana, lakini tukiangalia hata mawakili pia wamegawanyika. Kila wakili wa huku kimwangalia kumsikiza anafika upande wake. Yule akole kumsikiza naye pia anakuwa anaegemea upande wa. Hata kama sisi wananchi wanatutatiza tushike huku, moja tunataka wale mawakili wa ukweli ambao sisi tunaweza kuwasikiliza. Tujue hii ligi ya uchaguzi inani atakishika kipenga ni wachezaji na kina nani. Na hiyo fika sahihi.
Asante sana. Itakuwa tunaweza kujiunga na mkazi mwingine wa mwisho. Na mtuambie majina yako na kuhusiana na hisia zako kuhusiana na sheria ya uchaguzi. Je, unaelewa hizi sheria? Angalia kamera.
What I love to say, mimi naitwa Onyango Nation. What I would like to say is this, regarding the new laws which are being pumped into the electoral laws, I can say that these laws are illegal. Kwa sababu gani nasema they're illegal laws? Because while the cases are still pending and they have started, but underway there is a lot of stuff which has come in. You cannot make a new law while there are already the laws which are in system. So the laws which are in system are supposed to be used to judge that particular case which is at hand. And you cannot make a law to favor yourself. That is what you call abuse of power and abuse of an office. Yes. So when you are making a law wakati kesi inaendelea mbele, hiyo inamaanisha unafunja sheria, and that is what you call in law retrospectivity of the constitution. So it is an infringement, it is an abrogation, it is a violation of the principle and the doctrine of the law in regards to retrospectivity. So
thank you very much. Thank you. As you've heard Wahiga there from residents of Mombasa, they're saying that they are a bit confused about the electoral laws in particular. They're saying that there are EBC law, there is the Supreme Court, and even the lawyers are divided in the interpretation of this law, and some of them have gone to court maybe to seek the interpretation of those laws. But up to now, most of the residents don't understand actually the meaning of this law, and they do not understand maybe how they even do operate. Back to you, Wahiga, in studio.
Ashabe Kidusa, thank you so much for those comments. Very interesting statements there from Mombasa residents. Some even asking, are lawyers now confused because different lawyers on different talk shows with different perspectives of the same law, and that is something that we want to be talking about here with my guest here in studio. We will also be crossing over to Kisumu County, as we mentioned earlier, and we'll have that up as soon as possible. But I now want to introduce my guest here in studio, starting from the far right. Joy Mdivo, advocate, welcome to the program.
Asante sana.
Odoyo Widi, welcome back, political analyst.
Thank you.
Alex Gatundu, advocate, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana, advocate as well, welcome to the program as well.
Shukran.
Before we listen a little bit to what Ekuru Court had to say yesterday after that, you want to call it a landmark ruling by High Court Justice John Mativo, I want to ask each of you briefly the same question we've asked everyone out there. Is Kenya's election law a bit too complicated? And Joy, I want to start with you.
It's not just the election laws. This is a criticism I've had of the Kenyan legislative system for a long time. We got to some place in like about late 90s, early 2000s, where we stopped legislating as we had done before. Where if we are creating a crime, it's created under the penal code. If we are doing something civil, it's under the... We started this NGO agitated sort of laws where every cause had its own act. So sexual offenses, you get your own act. Narcotics, you get your own act. Environment, you get your own act. In each act you create offenses. In each act you create a board. In each act you create funding, until you got to a place we had so many laws dealing with the same thing, and it became convoluted. Now, come 2010, we complicated it further with our constitution, because what we did, we have a constitution that wants to be the Grundnorm, but also wants to be statute. It wants to tell you we have a right to elect our leaders and a freedom of association. Then it has 2-3 other articles and sub-articles telling you how that right will be given expression. Now, in my opinion, that is bad legislative writing. We need to say, you have a right, for example, one of the contentions, you have a right to life. Let it end there. Then let Parliament give that expression according to the people who have elected them at that time. But now what we're dealing now with the electoral laws has suffered the same fate, because the Constitution had very elaborate prescriptions on how to elect everybody from MCAs to the senators to the MPs to the president, and then at the same time we come back and we have an Elections Act, which again has very elaborate, and then now you have got the rules, the regulations, which are also very elaborate, and then the court issues directions. When you come to the court, this is what you expect. The IEBC also issued their own memorandum. Then now we've got actually we've got precedents. We've got Maina Kiai case, Raila Odinga versus IEBC, and all these are sources of law. So we've gotten to a place we have got this, and I mean, if you want to defend a position, all you have to do is to dump it in the dumpster, and you'll find something. It's like the way you go into the looking for things in Amutumba. If you just look hard enough, you'll find something that will support your position. And that is why you listen to me. I'll defend one position and I'll use this, and you talk to Alex, and you talk to Owidi, and you talk to Daktari, and each of us will actually come and we will actually defend the matter, and we will show you how we're getting it from.
Let's see if in the course of this broadcast we can find at least some common points that we all agree upon. But though I can give you your opening statement now.
We actually in Kenya, we are suffering from two very serious things. One is over legislation.
Thank you.
And the other one is over partisanship. A very well educated and learned lawyer will think with his heart and interpret things the way he feels it should have been, not the way it is in law. In Kenya, we even sometimes pass laws for specific goals.
Yes.
Like the one we are passing now. Somebody wants to achieve something right now, he passes a specific law now because the numbers are available. This goes to what I had called over partisanship. Even a parliament that should have actually been sober enough and say Kenya is disintegrating at a fast rate is going to back this over partisanship and help Kenya disintegrate even further. So I think we need to look back and sit back and dialogue. I read the letter IEBC had written yesterday, though if it was not signed and was sent out through Twitter. That letter, the last paragraph was dialogue. And I think if all of us embrace this dialogue, we would go into an election which is free, fair and transparent. But because some people apparently want to achieve a very specific goal, whichever way they do, maybe we will not even have that dialogue.
You're referring to who? Jubilee?
Yes, Jubilee, sir.
Okay. Just to clarify, for those who may have just tuned in, Alex, go ahead. I can allow you now to talk. Tell us your views on Kenya's election law in general.
Yes, I think not all the laws relating to elections, even land, family. Our laws are complex. They are complicated by virtue of the fact that our own lives are also complicated, and also the state of our laws, and especially the electoral laws, is influenced and informed by the history and experience of us as a country. Remember, we have come from the backdrop of dictatorship, 24 years. So when we were fighting for a new constitution, which was passed in 2010, Wajiko did not have any faith or trust with the politicians. She did not have any faith whatsoever with parliamentarians. She did not have any faith whatsoever with the government generally. So what did she decide to do? At Bomas, at both sessions, and even at Naivasha, when all these negotiations were being done, she insisted, I want my concerns, I want my feelings, I want my needs to be put down in writing, and I want them in the constitution. I do not want them to be left to the whims and fantasies. Yes, or parliament or politicians.
Okay.
So you can understand this is the state of our laws is informed and influenced by our needs, our history, especially the dictatorship backdrop that we have gone through.
Okay.
So for me, I would rather we have those complicated laws than have insufficient. I would rather that we have complicated laws. I would rather we have myriad of court cases rather than have us filling in the gap in the streets.
Okay.
Yes.
That is your point. Dr. Lutalala, I can allow you now to comment as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wahiga Mwaura, and for inviting me to the show, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. First of all, if you allow me, I wish to begin by making a very special request. And this request is founded in some of the comments that your viewers have actually expressed.
Okay.
Could we as panelists today agree that we will dwell on the law and its relevant application to what is happening
looking now? At them as you ask that. You're looking at me, and it is them you need to be talking to. You don't have to turn the chair, just turn your head.
Well, that's a good one. Yes. My request to the good lady and the good gentleman, that today we do some service, a different service. I know you have all been doing the same service, but if we could do it differently, that we dwell on the law as it is, as much as we can interpret it, and its relevance and application to the situation that is confronting us. I say so because some of us lawyers now have been labeled either pro-NASA or pro-Jubilee. And that is not good for the legal profession. Because under Section 4 of the LSK Act, we have a first responsibility as lawyers to educate the public. And educate means just that. Not to polarize, not to confuse. And so we've reached a stage where even lawyers now are losing the trust of the public. So that each time a lawyer opens his mouth or her mouth, we are being regarded no better than politicians who are actually not trusted. And there's a survey that was shown the other day. Media houses are the leading ones in trust among the citizens. Since the media houses have given us the opportunity to come and share this platform, it's important that we add value to their credibility. That's my request. With the greatest respect to my colleagues, I pray that we do so. Having done that, Wahiga, let me say, I'm at pains to appreciate the framing of your question. Because your question is law complicated? I would also ask you, is medicine complicated?
Very.
Is actuarial science complicated?
Extremely.
So law, just like other professions, is a specialized skill. So in the face of it, yes, it ought to be complicated because it's a specialized skill. You have to go to school 4 years plus. And if you're going further, you have to put 6-7 years to learn this skill.
That's correct.
So I do not think that question would do justice to our viewers. I think let's contextualize your question. The reason why you're asking if law is clear is because the citizenry seems to be at a loss. And I'll say this. Let us slightly try to go back to where the rain started beating us.
Which is when?
The day we stopped respect for the law. And this failure to respect the law has been laid by our own politicians on either side of the divide. we are where we are in this country now because on the 1st of September, a Supreme Court judgment was made. That is where the reign began. That when it was made, a section of our political leaders whom we have elected refused to accept, in practice, not in theory. And thereafter, the other side also now engage in subsequent actions which have only cascaded downwards to the citizenry. So as we speak today, Wahiga, we are the most polarized country. Unfortunately, this polarization is actually along tribal lines, and that's where the risk lies. That whereas I sit here and you sit here, I see no tribe in you and you see no tribe in me. But unfortunately, after this show, you are bombarded by these stereotypes from a particular leadership which tries to confine you, and so forth and so forth.
Okay.
So that is number one. Number two, where
briefly,
yes, where rain started beating us, is when we stopped respecting each other. I'm glad your reporter there quickly stopped one viewer who was going personal. We have gone personal as leaders. What happened?
And it's cascaded down to the masses.
And so, when we have reached this point where now we have to interpret the law to them, they see your surname and they conclude to which side you'll be leaning. And also, we lawyers have been a bit unfair, that we interpret the Constitution depending on where we think our next bills will be paid from. And that is what is undermining our credibility as a legal profession.
I'll have to cut you off there, but very strong points you raised that I'll allow each of my panelists here to respond to. But before that, yesterday, that ruling by Justice John Mativo opening the door, literally, for the other 5 presidential candidates to be on the ballot paper come October 26th. Let's revisit some of the statements or comments by Thirdway Alliance presidential or leader rather, Ekuru Aukot, after, of course, he got that particular ruling.
We underestimated our smallness, quote unquote, and we told them, if you do, try sleeping in a dark room with a mosquito. And that's precisely what we have proved to them, that we may be small, the way they see us politically, but if we have the law and justice on our side, that will reign. We will now retreat as a party, as you already know that we've been completely prejudiced. We still believe that there are issues that must be addressed at the IEBC, including those individuals, the bad elements at IEBC, who may have bungled the 8th August election. So we still strongly believe that we have a set of concerns that we will be raising with the IEBC. They are already out there in the open.
Because as you all know, we are approaching a constitutional crisis because of the events that have been happening. But this judgment has the effect of solving the looming constitutional crisis.
This judgment has the effect of solving the looming constitutional crisis. My question to you, Joy, I want to quote something Ekuru Aukot said: never underestimate the power of the small people, quote unquote. If you do, try sleeping in a dark room with a mosquito. Could you say that Kenya is on the path of real democracy when the so-called small man now has a say in the affairs of the nation? How would you describe what we saw yesterday?
That makes a lot of sense. In fact, there are 2 things that came out yesterday. One is what Dr. Ekuru is saying. Before, the quote-unquote small man used to pick his fights carefully. And if the one you're trying to fight was larger than life, usually decided, you know what, let me preserve my energy and my little monies, I don't have endless resources, and sort of just give up. And I must give credit to Dr. Ekuru for just keeping it on, and not letting it go. It's something that we must take our hat off to that gentleman. The second thing is also the emancipation of our courts. Because I think for all the people on this panel, we have lived through the days that Alex was talking about, where the judiciary was an extension of the executive. And so if you went for, in fact, it had the term was cases a serikali. If your case was against a serikali, the conclusion was foregone. In this situation these days, I mean, how does a president, an incumbent, lose an election petition? It was something that matter would have been fixed so long. He would not subject himself to chance that he might lose. But now we see the judiciary has actually come out very robustly and has emancipated themselves. And I'm very grateful to the judges for having done that. Why? Because now even I know if I go to the courts, I am likely to get justice because the judges have demonstrated they have the courage to swim against the tide. So yesterday was very good, not just for the small man, but also for the perception that, you know what, we definitely have separation of powers. We are coming to that. Now, the place where we need to see proper separation now is from the executive and parliament. We actually passed a system where parliament, regardless of which side of the political divide, should be standing separate from the executive. But what we are being treated to by this 12th parliament is that the ones who are allied to Jubilee are still taking their orders from State House. They're not sitting as a house and discussing things. The ones allied to NASA are still taking their cues from their principals. And so they're behaving in, they're whipping and de-whipping according to what... We need to come to a place where once you become a member of parliament, you realize your strength lies in parliament sitting and standing as one. And saying, you know what, let us decide this matter, let us give direction. Because even the impasse where we find ourselves right now, Parliament is the one that has got the proper authority to sit down and thrash it out and come up with a way forward. But as long as they're still behaving as if they're beholden to the executive, they have not yet understood their power in this equation of separation of powers. And that's why right now the judiciary is turning out to be our best bet. If you need to be sorted now, the ones who have come out robustly to be independent is actually the judiciary. And I'm really grateful that we are there, we are making that particular progress as a nation.
Okay, Odoyo?
Wahiga, I think she's very academic, but we have to look at things very seriously, and we must not lose track of the political angle. When I look at Parliament, I look at the judiciary, I look at IEBC and all these other so-called independent bodies, exactly none is independent. In fact, we are heading to a place where even the presidency is no longer independent. It is actually being controlled by the occupancy of those two offices, and they determine what is done there, whether they are laws or
which two offices?
I'm saying the president is occupied by two people.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is being controlled by these two people. It doesn't matter what laws are in place. We have learned to circumvent the laws that are there, twist them, misuse them, abuse them, and it boils down to, I think, something, I don't know. Look at this case now. We insist that the law says this, so we must do it that way, even when the whole public is against it. And when the law does not favor us, we either run away from it or change it at will, so that we can use one that will favor us. The reason why we are in Parliament changing laws, and you notice that those who are sitting in Parliament are all Jubilee or pro-Jubilee. None of them came to oppose that law in any way. No, and I am sure if NASA was in there, they would have, exactly all, would have opposed it. So we are running a country which is so divided that we are not even going to agree on giving citizens air if we had the power. If Jubilee says we give them air, NASA would say don't give them. If NASA was going to say give citizens, Jubilee would say don't give, even if they are going to die, because we are divided. This is something that the leadership needs to look at. Even before we go to this election, we should have sat down and agreed on the way forward for this country.
Let me interrupt you, because there's something you said that we can't let go of.
Okay.
Joy took time to explain why and how the judiciary has shown independence, especially over the last couple of weeks. You say no. Can you give us examples of what you've seen from the judiciary?
Let me tell you the case, Mativo's case yesterday. Mativo is telling us that the paragraph 290 of 2013
Supreme Court ruling,
Supreme Court was an obiter dicta, isn't it? And his statement is also an obiter dicta by a lower court, and he expects his to take precedent. So this court...
Okay. No. Let him finish so that now
you will come in. You will come in.
You've got a few law lecturers here.
Yes. Just wait, my brother. Look, when I listened, I actually listened throughout. I happened to have the time. This guy talked about so many things that not include what our Kuru court prayed for. It looks like some of these things were decided in the night after Raila Odinga had withdrawn from the race, so that it could direct how things are going to go in this country. We must learn to to use the laws that have been in existence throughout. In fact, all of you here, the three of you, you should have been condemning what is happening in Parliament now. In fact, you should have been with NASA in the streets that no laws can be passed when the election is just around the corner, so that some people can get what they want. And I know why that is happening.
Briefly, please.
If we don't have an election on 26th, it would mean if Uhuru continues to be president, he will be serving, I think, his second term. And I don't know under what circumstances that will be happening. And if we go to the election and we don't do it as Maraga had said, without these laws, that election will be overturned again. So these laws are meant to block any annulment of the subsequent election.
Okay, Alex.
I think Mr. Owidi has done a lot of injustice to your question, because you asked a very simple question on the role of Wanjiku in all these issues pertaining to law. And as far as I'm concerned, Wanjiku also in the legislative process is very, very key. And remember, unlike pre-2010 constitution, right now it is mandatory to involve Wanjiku in the legislation process. In what we call public participation. In fact, the current amendments as proposed, and which went through the final stage yesterday, and they were handed over to the Senate. Right now, they are undergoing public participation at that level, apex level of the Senate. So the role of Wanjiku in legislation is now heightened. It is very crucial, unlike in the past, where Wanjiku was a mere spectator and a victim of laws. Secondly, Article 1 of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya states clearly that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised in accordance with this Constitution and, of course, the laws made under the Constitution. Now, what does that mean? That means that even legislation, the process of legislation, the power to legislate in Kenya, by the way, is not even primarily and principally bestowed upon Parliament. No, it is bestowed upon Wanjiku, that's the people of Kenya. Then she delegates that legislative power to Parliament, and then Parliament is told how you are supposed to exercise this legislative power that you have, and what you can do and what you can't do, what the procedure. So to answer your question and to go direct, yes, the role of Wanjiku in as far as the lawmaking is concerned is very crucial, and it's more critical, and especially, and it is even informed and influenced by her past experience with the dictatorship that we came from in the 90s and 80s. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Lutalo, I noticed you wanted to come in when Owidi was talking. Maybe you can now respond.
Yeah, well, by the time you reach me, I think because of the various contributions, the question is lost.
It's when you said that Obita, the Obita
yes. Yeah, Obita, you can deal with the issue of Obita. He had stated that he felt that Justice John Mativo's comments yesterday went beyond what Kuru Okot had asked for. He touched on a wide range of matters that are now being used by other parties as law to counter the 2013 Supreme Court judgment.
Okay, I didn't want to react to his question. I really wanted your original question so that I can build both to save time, but I'll respond exactly what you want. With respect to my brother here, you see, I think he's contributing to this confusion among the citizenry. You see, for you to say that the question that Mativo decided upon was thought at night,
that's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
We are again degenerating into the insults against the judiciary and which you don't want. In my view, the decision by Mativo was apt, and it helps to clean the mess that there was. It may have its merits and demerits, but I do not think this is the forum for us to go into the depth of the legal and jurisprudential merits and demerits. I'm sure that will be for another day, so that you don't confuse viewers more. But in my view, I agree with my two learned colleagues that Mativo's decision was right. Look, Wahiga, the laws are only as good as its implementers. I do not agree that the Constitution is complicated. I agree with my brother Alex here when he says that the history behind the enactment of the Constitution 2010 was this: that Kenyans had grown to distrust everybody called a politician, and therefore they insisted that as much as possible the Constitution must encapsulate the wishes and to a large extent, even the implementation aspect of what Wanjiku wants. And that is why my sister got it right when she says that the constitution attempts to regulate how it should be implemented. So we must understand the historiography of this constitution. And for that, ours is the most progressive constitution. The problem is not the constitution. The problem is that the biggest customers of the constitution and the laws are politicians. And the politicians in this country, every time a politician opens his or her mouth to talk, don't listen to what he is saying, listen to what he's not saying. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know how to respond to that. Let me read some of your feedback. Getting lots of feedback here on 22422. Let me see here. I seem to have okay, it's gone blank. Here we go. Raphael Owako from Nairobi says the law is very clear, except we all want to do it from our own perspective.
With our own rose-colored glasses.
Someone else asking, Kenya has issues not due to lack of laws, but because of the political class. The current ruling class, who are sworn to unite the country, are overwhelmed and cannot steer the ship of state. Who is to save the country? Another person here says the confusion that is facing Kenya today, this is Teen Derito, is the result of lawyers negating their professional responsibilities for political gain. And the current circus is the practicing political lawyers vis-a-vis judges, in brackets lawyers, and they don't care what happens to Wanjiku. Secondly, Jubilee and NASA slept on the job. They had 4.5 years to sort out bad laws and streamline the 2010 constitution. They failed. Thirdly, some of the shortcomings being realized were shortcomings in law. Fourthly, we should okay, this is an interesting proposal. We should open our doors to Commonwealth for jobs like in the Supreme Court, an IBC chairman, because Kenyan lawyers and judges are partisan, as we have been since the beginning of electioneering season started. I'll give each of my panelists a chance to respond to some of this feedback on the other side of this break. Keep talking to us, 22422, and our social media platforms as well. We take a quick break now on Citizen Extra. We will be right back.